Hello everyone. This lecture is on culture and communication in the medieval India. It is a part of your paper on media, culture and society. In this lecture, we will learn about the relationship between culture and communication in the medieval India. You will learn the richness of cultural traditions, language, literature, along with the development of postal services during the medieval period. This lecture will help you to understand the rise of language and literature, cultural traditions through contacts and encounters, and the rise of communicational apparatus through postal services during the medieval period. Medieval age is filled with a vibrant history of immense changes in almost every aspect of the society, ranging from literary to cultural traditions of performing arts, architecture, painting, poetry, drama, music, and dance that have deeply influenced the succeeding generations. Phenomenally rich composite cultural traditions and cultural exchanges that signify the plurality of cultures in India took shape in this age. Medieval age attests a phenomenal growth of dialects into languages, yielding strong literary works. Prakrit, Tamil and Sanskrit were already enjoying a supreme authority. In the medieval age, fusions of folk and elite was common, implying that languages developed through a long process of cultural assimilation. Urdu language is one such incontrovertible proof of cultural exchanges. Along with the formation of new bhashas such as Urdu, Semitic, Arabian and Persian were influencing and enriching the vocabulary of Sanskrit, Prakrit and Tamil. Regional languages gained stability and maturity, producing some of the finest poetry. The emerging modern Indian languages, including Urdu, constitute the voice of the medieval India. All had a phenomenal growth and development in the medieval times, involving all aspects of life: history, politics, literature, architecture, music, theatre, customs, and beliefs. In short, the whole of the culture yielded literature of extraordinary merit. Translations and adaptations of literary works was impressive. Padmavat of Malik Muhammad Jaisi, a Sufi saint, elucidated the syncretism of Sufi ideas on the relation of the soul with God and Hindu idea of Maya. Similarly, religious syncretism at various levels were taking place. Sufism and Bhakti were prominent examples. At the same time, there were many remarkable contributions in the field of science and technology. Hence, the process of assimilation and convergence resulted in the development of a new enriched culture. The empire had a constant need of gathering intelligence information. An efficient system of communication was required to serve the communicational needs of the empire, without which it would not have survived or sustained for so long. The requirement of an efficient communication system began with the emergence of the state in ancient India and accelerated with further advancements in material conditions of the society. As Habib suggests, with their large empire, the Mughals needed to organize a system whereby news and orders could be conveyed rapidly over great distances. The organization was essentially based on twin methods of relay runners and relay horses. Relay runners and relay horses were integral to the dak chowki system introduced by the Mughals. Their communicational apparatus relied mainly on the postal services. The postal services, as we understand them today, are of recent origin. Britishers introduced the mail services as we know of them today. medieval India had a very different kind of postal service. Prior to 1837, there was no general postal system. The postal services were meant to cater to the rulers and not to the common people. It only served the empire's need of maintaining communication between different parts of the kingdom and keep them in close touch for administrative purposes. We know that homing pigeons have been used as message carriers from the earliest of times. In ancient India, the Mauryan Empire had an efficient communication system. The earliest evidence of a systematic postal service using foot messengers or mail runners were found in ancient India during the reign of Chandragupta Maurya. Communication service was established to serve the needs of intelligence gathering and collection of revenue data. Similarly, Ashoka also devised an efficient system of communication to maintain his empire. During this time, camels were also used to carry mail in northern part of India, such as Jaipur. With the advancement of the society, new methods of speedy delivery of messages were invented. Medieval India had established the early form of postal services called dak chowkis in India, in which they continued with the foot runners and established formal horse posts for speedy message service. They were mainly used by kings and merchants. Mail runners had been a source of attraction for their bravery and speed of conveyance. By 14th century, there was a well-organized state institution of intelligence gathering through horse and foot posts. The earliest recorded instances of post in medieval India seems to have been established by Alauddin Khilji, the Pathan ruler. He established horse and foot posts during his army expeditions to furnish him with military news. He also monitored everyday occurrence of his kingdom through daily reports. Similarly, Sikandar Lodi and Babur are also mentioned by historians in connection with the developments in their postal services. Emperor Babur is said to have ordered the measurement of Agra-Kabul road and developed horse courier system to serve the postal and army link with his capital at Agra. He also established Char Dwaris, which served as watchtowers all along the way to ensure safety. The reign of Emperor Sher Shah is considered a landmark in the history of medieval India. He constructed roads and sarais. He built approximately 1700 sarais on various roads, and 2 horses and a set of footmen were stationed at every dak chowki at a distance of every 5 kilometers. He deployed almost 3,400 horses for the work of post. Hence, his contribution in establishing the horse post was remarkable. Emperor Akbar is credited with establishing camel post in India. The foot runners, called harkara, were the mainstay of this communicational apparatus along with the horses. They were not just the dak carriers, but also worked as intelligence agent for the system. Harkaras ran for almost 20 miles in a day. The Mughal Empire was said to have been served by 4,000 imperial harkaras. Awadh alone in the 1770s was said to have had 20,000 harkaras, that is about 1 spy runner for every 2 regular soldiers. The postal system was not open to the public. The couriers were usually enjoined not to convey private mail. The harkaras were supposed to submit an undertaking that they would not carry any paper of private person along with the official paper. For the ordinary private persons, there were patamars or bazaar kasits, also known as bazaar couriers, which town that they would be going to such and such place and invite the public to entrust them with their letters for that particular place. The origin of the public post as we understand them today in India may be traced to the colonial India. The harkaras did not undergo any formal training except that they were trained within their families or were apprenticed to caste members who taught them skills of running and survival in hostile territory. As far as their social background is concerned, It is argued that the Harkaras belonged to the Mayo community and were called Dark Mayoras. Bharadwaj says, their main function was to deliver the post in the remote areas of Mughal territories, even in the adverse weather conditions. Another section of the Mayos, called Khidmatiyas, served as personal bodyguards to the emperor and as security guards in the royal palace and Mughal forts. They were regarded as the most loyal and faithful and efficient servants of the Mughal state. In fact, Akbar trusted the Mayoras so much that he kept them as his bodyguards. He administratively and politically integrated the Mewat region into Mughal state, but also brought the social assimilation of the Mayos. Once Akbar had developed the Mughal Dak with the help of the Mayoras, the other Mughal emperors followed the same policy. Mayoras were mainly dak carriers during the reign of Aurangzeb. Akbar is known to have developed the postal system that contributes in the safety and consolidation of the empire. He enrolled many young Mayos into his postal system who could run fast and survive in hostile weather and terrain. Bharadwaj argues Akbar successfully transformed the potential of the youth of the Mayo community into their being loyal and faithful servants for the Mughal state. The religious background of Mayos is an interesting confluence of communication and culture. Their religious practices signify a process of cultural interaction. The cultural interaction with the Mughals shaped many of their practices. Since the Dak Mayoras were living in close proximity to Islamic culture, they adopted many customs and rituals associated with the Mughal officials and the court. They participated in their festivals such as Eid al-Fitr, Ramzan fast, Shabarat. They also took part in the Urs of Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti. Since they were closely observing these festivals, they started celebrating this in their own villages after retiring from their jobs. But at the same time, they were celebrating Holi, Janmashtami, Dussehra and Diwali. The village deities were the same as those of Hindus. We have a whole cultural gamut attached to the backbone of the Mughal communication apparatus, that is, the foot runner. Similarly, the horse, which was of great importance in the two branches of the government, that is, warfare and the postal system, also guided the priorities and routes of the Mughal trade. The fine quality horses were imported from Arabia and Persia. Breeding of these horses was also encouraged. Thus, notwithstanding the considerable import of horses from abroad and the extensive breeding at home, horse transport was almost entirely absent in medieval India. The ox, the buffalo, and the camel were thus the only important carriers. Buffalo and oxen were used in all parts, camels generally in the Rajputana region, Sindh and Punjab. Camels were besides the only beasts of burden that were employed in the caravan trade to Western and Central Asia. All these animals not only drew carts, coaches, and carried goods on their backs, but also formed the principal means of conveyance for the general mass of the people. Another instance of such cultural interaction linked with the communicational apparatus are the Banjaras, the nomadic tribe. They formed an important part of the communicational apparatus of the Mughal Empire. Banjaras primarily engaged in the food grain transportation and other commodities on the back of their animals. The Mughals incorporated them into their army. They maintained a key role in many military campaigns of the Mughal emperors. Along with this, the Banjaras ensured a regular supply of necessary items when they were away from their agricultural base. They not only supplied the needs of the civil population, but were often employed to supply provisions to large armies in the field. They thus constituted an important element in the social organization of India before the era of the railroad, and in many parts were indispensable for the purpose of land transport. Since we are discussing the official communication services of the medieval India, it is obvious that the empire had news reporters. According to Pernau and Jaffrey, each ruler attempted to appoint his own news writer. The Akbar Nawais, for example, at many of the focal points in the subcontinent as possible. They reported either on a daily or on a bi-weekly basis. These handwritten newsletters, Akbarat, are well known for the 17th and the 18th centuries. There were various news reporters in different parts of the empire who were known as the Wakai Navis or the Wakai Nigar, the Savanik Nigar, and the Khufia Navis, including the Harkaras. They regularly provided news from the provincial centres to the capital. The number of dispatches sent from the provincial centres to the capital might have changed from time to time, but their frequency clearly indicates the necessity of maintenance of a regular system of post throughout the empire. And that system was well maintained at least to the middle of the 18th century. The Wakai Nigar worked in the various district and city courts, including offices, and the Savai Nigar reported the rumours. There used to be the letter writers available called the Katibs. After the British set up India's modern postal network in 1854, they formalized the system of professional letter writers in the post offices. There were the munshis who were employed in the courts of the kings and the nobles, and who composed the letters for the aristocrats. The bulk of the secretarial class in Mughal India consisted of members of the three castes, who were the Kayast, the Khatris, and the Brahmins. These castes had a prolonged association with professions based on reading and writing in Hindi and Sanskrit, Indian languages that were written in the Devanagari script. Their members entered the field of Persian learning to compete for administrative positions in the state secretariat during the 16th century. However, the news-gathering apparatus of the empire could not have survived only on the basis of a formal bureaucracy of postal service and news writers. Itinerant specialists were an important source of knowledge for the ruler. Kings and nobles patronized wandering holy men, astrologers, physicians, and even musicians, partly because they could bring recent news from their travels. The Sufi mystics, especially members of the unorganized Sufi sects, were welcomed by the whole elite. These men made regular pilgrimages throughout India and Central Asia. They gave spiritual counsel, practiced the healing arts, and listened to the concerns of thousands of men and women. Their unworldly status gave them the right and the duty to tell men of power the truth without any restraint. They carried information between noble houses and especially between their women's quarters. Kings likewise called on itinerant doctors to report on the condition of their subjects as well as to reveal new cures and mysteries. Beyond these unofficial agencies lay a petty economy of information. Bazarians or bazaar rumor mongers were an identifiable group of people who leaked official news to the wider population. They provided grist to the mill of a horde of canny people: midwives, barbers, prostitutes and dancing girls, druggists, bards, itinerant physicians, wandering adepts of the philosopher's stone, amulet sellers, and even sweepers. A good source of day-to-day information were the marriage brokers, that is, women who procured partners for difficult marriages. Thus, in this lecture, you learned about the relationship between culture and communication in medieval India through the dominant means of communication, that is, the postal system, which was based on foot runners and horse posts. We discussed the social and cultural aspects of postal system, focusing on Harkara, the foot runner, and the intelligence agent. We also discussed at length about how Mughal state brought social integration of Mayos, who were resisting all attempts of integration with the Mughal administration and later also British administration. The social integration of Mayos shaped the cultural contours of the community by bringing an interesting mix of various cultural ethos and practices. Similarly, horses and their importance in cavalry and postal system produced economic constraints and priorities. For more details, please read the modules carefully and attempt the questions given at the end of each module. Thank you.